Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Truth. I'm your host, the one you love the most, Niall Heston, back with a brand new episode here on The Truth. Back once again with my boy, AJ Ponciano. AJ, how are you doing here today?
I'm doing great now. How about yourself?
I'm doing great as well. If you guys have seen on this podcast recently, I do a lot of muting my mic and coughing. Well, at least I try to mute my mic before I cough. But finally, bit the bullet once again, went to the doctors, and she told me that it was just allergies. So that's awesome because I can't really get an immediate fix. But overall, I feel like it's been relatively better. We'll see how many times you guys see me cough in the distance. But that's just safe to say that I have not adjusted very nicely to the weather, especially today. Today was the coldest day that we've had, which was 40 some degrees. What's it like out there in California?
Actually, today is a little bit nicer. I mean, finally, mid October is when Ridgecrest gets a little bit better, where it's not 105 every day. I think today's high was like 94 or something, 95, which is pretty nice. I mean, mine's down 10 degrees than what I'm used to. So, honestly, today was one of the nicer days.
Yeah, and I mean, on top of that being Ridgecrest in general, what about like wind? I know wind was always a big thing when I was there.
It wasn't that bad today. I mean, you definitely felt a little bit, but there wasn't that many gusts out there today, like or at least big ones.
Well, there you got it. You got your daily weather report today here on The Truth. Hope you guys did enjoy that. But today we are doing our Thursday night special for week number 7. You have a particular interest in this matchup. It is the Broncos and it is the Saints. Now, it's funny because AJ's got his team playing this week and Thursday night. I got my team playing next week and Thursday night. So these two shows should be fun. But Sean Payton's, is this his first return to New Orleans? Wow, that's awesome. Good for him. So I think I saw something in the presser that he was didn't know what his welcome was going to be, if he was going to be welcome back, booed, whatever. But should be fun, should be interesting. Broncos Saints. We'll give you guys our start, sit, sleepers, and busts. So without further ado, go ahead and give us any starts you have for this matchup.
Yeah, so I think the only true lock is going to be Alvin Kamara coming to this game for starting him. I think he's still dealing a little bit with the broken ribs or fractured ribs or whatever it was. But last week, I mean, they just couldn't really get the ball going on the ground, could get the run game going, and that really limited his production last week. I think that he should be bouncing back. I think he had sub 15 carries for the first time this season in this last game. This was also the first. That was also the first game with Spencer Rattler at quarterback. But I think Kamara is going to adjust a little bit better. They're going to have a better game plan, and they're going to have to rely a lot on him with Chris Olave being out for this game with a concussion, eventually Rashid Shaheed being out with an injury. So I think they're going to have to rely on him. And then I really like Bo Nix in this matchup. I think that the Saints team has been decent at giving up the not giving up the big plays, but Bo Nix's rushing potential and has he's shown the last couple of weeks his escapability. I think he's going to do a lot on his legs. I think he could get you like 60 plus rushing yards in this game. Maybe probably a touchdown and an interception with like sub 200 yards. So startable. If he's someone that you have in a super deep league or a 2 quarterback league, I wouldn't be too scared starting this week. I know the Saints forced 3 interceptions last week against Baker Mayfield, but Baker also threw for a lot. He didn't really rush a whole lot. Bo Nix can kind of get that level of the rush ability that Baker can.
So I might go with one only one start, I should say. Typically, obviously, I try to do at least two, but I feel like this matchup's kind of hard to feel some solid guys. Obviously, the Kamaras of the world. Try to avoid those as much as I could. The one start that I'm going to do is going to be on the Broncos side, and it's going to be Cortland Sutton. I feel like I've been doomed from Cortland Sutton for like 3-4 years now. Obviously, he had that one good year and then kind of fell off. Last week had his best week per se, basically tied with his week in week 4, but 15 fantasy points, which is all right, especially where he's valued and where he's budgeted at and where he was drafted at for that matter. And all in all, you're not really too excited about that. But you look at week 1, had 4 catches for 38 yards, was targeted 12 times. Week 3, targeted 11 times. Week 4, 3 catches, targeted 9 times. Bo Nix has done a really bad job of getting him the football, but he's at least looked in his direction. So going into this matchup for New Orleans, I think he's going to continue to get those targets, which hopefully will lead into some receptions and maybe a continuation of a couple of touchdowns. But at times, obviously, the Broncos passing game has looked bleak. I know it looked bleak this last week. I know it looked bleak in week, I believe it was 4, when Bo Nix had like negative passing yards at halftime. So it's looked bleak at times, but when it's going, it's usually when Cortland Sutton is going. And I think he has a good opportunity to do so going into this matchup. Okay, what about
I'm gonna go have two. First one's gonna be Javante Williams. Uh, I think Williams. He was great for his first couple of years, but this season, the last two seasons, just hasn't been great for him. And the Saints defense, especially the run defense, is usually really good. They were really bad last week. I think they gave up almost 8 yards per rush attempt between Sean Tucker and Bucky Irving. But Javante Williams is not that type of running back. He's not similar. There's no similarities really between Bucky and Sean to Javante. Uh, Different type of runners. I think Saints are going to be able to match up a lot better against that run game. And I know he was your only start. I actually have him sit as Cortland Sutton, and it's mainly because Marshawn Lattimore is going to be on him all game, and that's going to be the main factor. It's not because Bo Nick's not giving him targets. Marshawn's been shut down all year. I want to say he's only given up like 7, 8 receptions this entire season. I think last week, Mike Evans only had like 2 receptions for like 30 yards, and that was on the first drive of the game. After that, I think Mike Evans was targeted once, maybe twice after that. Marshawn's been shut down all year, and I would assume he's going to be on Sutton because Sutton's probably the most favorable matchup for uh, the Broncos to be able to try to beat the Saints defense. I don't think that they're going to have him on rookie Troy Franklin or Marv Mims. I think that Marshawn is just going to be covering Sutton the whole time, or yeah, Sutton the whole time. So that's why I'm fading him.
So for me, I'm going to go with one must sit as well. It's going to be on that Broncos side, and it's going to be, well, I guess it's a collective unit, but it's the Broncos running backs. I mean, yeah, Javante's probably head horsing that running back room there. They've got a couple other guys that not too many people know too much information about, but regardless, the running game has just not been it this year. And I mean, Javante Williams is one of those guys that has definitely had a disappointing year at times, but then also a decent year at times as well. And it's really reliant on how Bo Nix performs. I know that's obvious, but it really is. And Bo Nix, when he's able to get Javante Williams in the passing game going, he's able to have good amount of success. The question is, how successful will he be getting these running backs involved in the passing game? Because when he does, I mean, that's when he's had his good weeks. But at times, he's had average 2 yards a carry, 1 yard a carry, just not really breaking through. It doesn't help when your quarterback play hasn't been very good. The passing game hasn't been very good. And collectively, they kind of filter in running backs here and out. So Javante Williams, for me, definitely scares me. He's averaging 8.6 fantasy points. I was already cautious about Javante Williams going into this year. I felt like he kind of burned me last year, especially coming off that ACL injury. He just hasn't performed at a level that maybe people, including myself, were expecting to. So I think going up against that Saints defense on the road is going to be very difficult for him. He's not going to be able to have success that people would expect him to have going into this week. Okay, what about sleepers?
So both my sleepers are both rookie wide receivers. I'm gonna go with Troy Franklin, and this is mainly because of just the uptick in production we've seen, and also the uptick in the usage that we've seen. Last week had a career high 31 yards, 2 receptions, did have a touchdown. Uh, if there's like I say, Sutton's, in my opinion, he's gonna have to be shut down by Marshawn in this game. And Franklin's going to be one of the only options there. He's going to have to step up in this game. This could be his first game where he gets over 100 yards, potentially just a lot of long connections. I don't know if that's exactly happening. That's a long shot for him to get 100 yards, but maybe first time getting 50 yards, a touchdown. I wouldn't be too surprised if he's one of the more high targeted guys in that offense. And then Bub Means. Bub Means was a really good wide receiver coming out Pitt. Last week had all of his production all year. 5 catches, 45 yards, and a touchdown with Spencer Rattler, and that's mainly because they played together all the time. Playing the second team with each other all the time. There's already a connection there. And like I mentioned earlier in the show, Chris Olave, he's injured. He's out. He's got the concussion. Rashid Shaheed, there's a very high chance that he is not going to play in this game. He's missed practice. Taysom Hill, good chance he's not in the game. He missed practice today and yesterday. So the weapons are very thin for the Saints right now. And Bub Means, I mean, he's showed some production last week. They showed a connection, like I said, 5 receptions on 8 targets, 45 yards, a touchdown. He was a fifth-round pick. This is the time for him to really show out. I mean, this could look like a really bad pick if Pat Surtain's on him all game, because there's a very good chance he's not even going to get a single target if Surtain's on him. But if he isn't, they already showed a connection between Rattler and Means, so I like him.
So I got three young guys for my sleepers. First, I'm going to start with continuation with the Broncos side. It's going to be Devon Valey. Now, I have never heard of this guy, to be honest. I don't know where he's from, where he got drafted, if he was undrafted. But he's a wide receiver for the Broncos. I played in week 1 and obviously week 6. Missed 2, 3, 4, and 5. Week 1 had 8 catches for 39 yards. The 8 catches really stuck out the page. And then last week had 4 catches for 76 yards. So collectively, he's put up basically 12 fantasy points, and he's rostered in 0.2% of leagues. The Broncos passing game has obviously been disappointing. I know Bo Nix is not a guy that I'm super high on, especially going into this week. A big part of that is just the turnovers. I mean, in general, when you have 2, 3 turnovers, you're going to have really bad points, even if, let's say the yards are up there. So I think that's one of the reasons why I'm fanning a guy like Bo Nix. But Devon Bailey could definitely get some reps, especially since he's already proven early on, especially in week 1 and week 6 when he's been on the field, that he's developed a good connection there with Bo Nix. This is a really, really deep sleeper. That's why I highlighted him at my first position here. I think if you're in really 16 team leagues, you would only deeply consider this, especially if you had some guys that are on bye, injuries, etc. But definitely a guy that maybe could get a surprising touchdown. Spencer Rattler is my second sleeper. I gave you a lot of shit earlier about Spencer Rattler, but to be honest, he really did not play bad at all. I think for the situation that he was in, with Derek Carr being injured, the Saints really asked him to kind of do whatever he could to kind of keep them in there. And for the most part, he did. Yeah, he had the interception, but that was expected. I had 2 interceptions, I should say, but the last one, I don't really count that. Had the interception where it was like, okay, like that was expected. Everyone was expecting him to get an interception there. But all in all, throughout, I mean, he went 22 for 40, 241, 1 touchdown, those 2 interceptions, only 4 carries for 27 yards. But I was watching that game a good amount, at least from my perspective. He looked overall pretty comfortable in the pocket. He looked like he was able to move around a little bit, make some plays with his legs. I saw a couple passes where his wide receivers, it would have been difficult for them to catch it, but he kind of looked like he threw like bullet passes and it just bounced off their hands. He's got all the tools he needs to be a successful quarterback. And the Saints getting him in the 4th or 5th round, whatever it was an absolute steal because this was a guy that was projected to be the #1 overall pick back in the day in the draft. So you knew talent wise, he has every tool, asset that he needs to be successful. The biggest thing is, can he materialize into a good quarterback? I mean, all rookie quarterbacks are going to struggle in week 1 and their first weeks and even their first couple seasons, but how long can they hold him on for? I definitely think the Saints got a good one there. Whole point of that, I think he's got a good opportunity to have success once again. I think he got a little bit of those jitters per se out of the way. I think he could continue to pump up the yards, even with guys like Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave potentially out, and even Taysom Hill for that matter. And the big reason why is, as you mentioned, Bub Means. Now, I looked at Bub Means, who was my third sleeper, and it looked like he didn't have a catch in his first 4 games that he played. Last week, 5 catches, 45 yards, and a touchdown. Obviously, you know more about him than I do, but the biggest thing that I learned is the fact that he did a tremendous job with Spencer Rattler, and that's always is huge, especially for a rookie quarterback, as you mentioned, playing on those second team reps, having that connection with Bub Means. Rookie quarterbacks look for guys that they can count on, especially with Olave and Shaheed, 2 of the best, if not the best receivers on that Saints team being out. He's a guy that could get upwards potential of even 6, 7, even 8 receptions for maybe 70 yards and a touchdown. This is again another deep sleeper that I think not too many people are paying attention to, but a guy that could have a profound impact on your fantasy team going into this matchup here. Okay, and then any busts.
Yeah, this is more of like an asterisk if it is Rashid Shaheed out and Taysom Hill out, but I gotta go with Spencer Rattler. I just don't see him. See him taking a step forward from last week, but I don't see it being like a great game for him. Uh, I just think he has some ways to go. If you look at his numbers, I mean, they don't look the best as a whole, especially if you look at some of his advanced numbers, like his QBR and stuff like that. He had the 2 interceptions, 1 touchdown, 243 yards, completion percentage of 55. But if he's missing, I get he didn't have Olave basically the entire game. He was out after that like second drive. But they had Shaheed the entire game. Shaheed I think he had 1 reception for like 3 yards or 2 yards or something like that. He was not involved in the game. Uh, Alvin Kamara, like I said before, he's like one of the only true locks for both teams really as a starter, and I think his production will go be much higher than it was, which is going to take some pressure off Rattler, but that's also going to take production away from Rattler. Also in this game script, I don't think that they're going to be blown out like how they were, and they're not going to have to throw as much. Rattler, I believe, had 40 pass. Yeah, he was 22 for 40. He had 40 pass attempts in his first ever start. I don't see him having 40 pass attempts. I think that he may be closer to like the 30 to 33 mark in the pass attempts. I don't think he goes above 35 there. So I just think as a whole, the game script will be a little bit easier for Rattler, and since he's not going to have to throw as much, but I don't think that he's going to have those big plays. I think maybe a touchdown and an interception with like 180 yards, 200 yards is very reasonable on like 33 pass attempts.
So my bust is going to be Bo Nix. I feel like I say this every week with Bo Nix. Now, Bo Nix, we'll give him credit. He's done better than, I guess overall I'd expect him to, just because last week had 20.7, week before 23.1. I mean, he's had some good weeks, but I feel like it's a lot of kind of late pushing. Either they're down or they're kind of stat padding, whatever. I just feel like he's too inconsistent, especially going into this matchup. I think guys like Vile and Cortland Sutton are going to have success, but I'm not too sure Bo Nix will. Obviously, 4 interceptions in his first 2 games. He's only had 1 in his last 4. It honestly seems like a lot more than that, but he's done a relatively good job. One of these times he's going to fall back into old habits. This could be a perfect opportunity for him too. Not like I'm praying on his downfall or anything, but he's had back-to-back home games. Going to go on the road once again. Where obviously week 1 had those 2 interceptions, didn't look great. And to be fair, he wouldn't have had good success if he didn't have success running the football, which I know is a part of his game and a part of his arsenal, but it is something to consider as far as fantasy quarterbacks and fantasy relevancy for that matter. So I'm going to keep fading Bo Nix, but he has done better. And I'm getting to this is probably the last week. I'm saying that now, but this is probably the last week that I'm going to continue to fade Bo Nix. I think he's got the potential to do something great, but I just don't think this is the opportunity. I think Sean Payton's return to New Orleans will be spoiled, and it could just be a difficult game for them regardless. Speaking of which, I think I know where you're heading, but do you have a game prediction for this one?
Yeah, this one I think is going to be a little bit more low scoring. I want to say 20-13 is going to be the final score. I'm going to go with the Saints with the home crowd. I think Rattler shows off what he did in the preseason and has a game-winning drive there for the Saints. Like I said, I think it's going to be a close game. It's going to go back and forth. I think a lot of 3-and-outs. I would bet you're going to see at least each team have 5 to 6 3-and-out or 4 to 6 3-and-outs in this game. I think both defenses are really good. It's going to be low scoring. 2 rookie quarterbacks, one going off the second game off a short week also. That's one of the other things with the Saints, is that this is their 3rd game in like 11 days. Like they have had a lot of games, a lot of stuff going on as of recent, and I think they're going to be a little bit tired. I don't think they're going to be as explosive. And then the Broncos, it's 50-50 with that team. They're going to score. I think Sean Payton, yes, he's going to want to try to show off and win there in New Orleans, but he knows how hard it is to play at New Orleans because he's been the head coach there for so long.
I'm going to go with a little different approach. I'm going to go with the Saints winning 31-13. I'm giving the Saints the benefit of the doubt here. Clearly, I have not done well. If I pick a low scoring game, it tends to be a high scoring game. If I pick a high scoring game, it tends to be a low scoring game. But I'm trusting Kamara. I really think Kamara is going to step up to the plate here. He's had success in those games, not necessarily like Thursday night games in particular, but basically when there's a primetime game, he's had success. I will always have horrific flashbacks of that Christmas Day game where he had like 5, 6 touchdowns. But I really think he comes in his own. 6, yeah, it was a 6. Yeah, I had him on my fantasy team, but it was hard to watch as a Vikings fan. Right. And I think he's going to settle Rattler in very nicely. I'm going to go with a hot take here. I think he has 3 total touchdowns. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets at least one on each side and gets another one, maybe even 4. Maybe I'm pushing it and I'm hoping because I have him like 3 leagues and I really want him to have that big type of performance. But regardless, I think Spencer Rattler does enough, especially as a game manager, even though he's not necessarily considered one. I think he keeps the Saints involved. I think he keeps them going. I think he does a great job with his legs. And I think the Broncos continue to struggle, particularly on the offensive side. Thank you guys for listening to another episode here in The Truth. If you guys did enjoy it, make sure you follow The Truth on Twitter. It's Truth as one to stay up to date with the latest information regarding The Truth, including podcast dates, podcast uploads, and other important information you don't want to miss. Make sure you guys also follow The Truth on Instagram and TikTok at the.tt.truth. Are you looking to find a drink that offers peak hydration, raises your energy levels, keeps your mind sharp through focus and memory? Look no further than with Acid Rainwater. I'm excited to partner with Bloodline Sports, AZ, and Acid Rainwater, which focuses on peak hydration and productivity while also maintaining ecosystem-friendly product. Use code HESSON15, that's HESSON15 for 15% off every purchase. As always, I'm your host, the one you love the most, Niall Hesson, joined once again by AJ Ponciano. Take care and good night.